Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about what the student visa process is and why is Australia considered as such a wonderful place to come and study at. Now, Australia has a great balanced life to offer for those that want to come here and study. It's not nearly as intense as it is in most other countries. You're able to have a good work-life balance. Well, in this case, a study-life balance, and partially you may be allowed to work because it does allow for part-time work rights while you're in session and full-time work rights when you're not in session, meaning your course is not running or you're on holidays. So it's really important to note these things, that you're able to really become a developed adult or a person because of the ability to be able to do all of these. Now, a lot of people that come to Australia usually end up working part-time and then studying full-time, which is quite intense. Some people may just choose to focus on studying, whereas the others will choose to do both. Now, that will depend on what kind of course you're studying, how intense it is, how much of your own personal time it requires. Also other factors like how well are you looking to do in the course, how much of your time do you have the ability to dedicate towards studying, versus some people may also like to be outside and be able to work while trying to just maintain their record of attendance and getting, say, an average score. Or you might be really smart and are able to do both while maintaining a good score or average score throughout your semesters. So now, engineering subjects, medical related subjects also obviously require a lot of input and time, versus certain degrees that may be focused more on commerce or arts discipline. Not always the case. Again, it will vary from institution to institution. Now, what does Australia have to offer that other countries don't? This is one of the main things that people consider when coming to Australia. Firstly, it offers good climate. It offers a relatively relaxed pace of studying compared to some other countries, especially located in Asia. Then you got the ability to be able to travel during your holidays, and then being able to work full-time during your holidays on a student visa as well. So a combination of that is really good. It also allows you the ability to bring family members. Now, family members is a really important aspect. Some people are either in relationships, whether it's de facto, married, or with children, and you could potentially bring your whole family with you to Australia while you're studying. And those dependent family members may be allowed to work as well. And if you have children, they need to be enrolled in schools and be able to study. For that, you will have to show extra financial capability to be able to support all of that, because the students will still be required to pay a higher fees to attend schooling, whether it's public schooling or private schooling, because it is not subsidized by the government. So what do we need to cover here? Now, let's talk about, as a dependent, say your partner who comes with you, are they allowed to work? Yes, they are. Most of the time that'll be part-time work, unless you're enrolled in a master's course or above. In that case, they have the ability to be able to work full-time, which can be a huge benefit because master's course is not always cheap. In most cases, it is quite expensive, and that will allow you the ability to work, and you can use your partner's income from the full-time work that they're doing to be able to support the finances or expenses of living in Australia. We all know that Australia is not exactly the cheapest country to be living in, and you need to have the capability to be able to afford the high amount of rents and average weekly expenses. Now, let's talk about the requirements or eligibilities for you to be able to come on a student visa. On a student visa, you can either come as a student to attend schooling. Recently, we handled cases for a family where we've brought all the children, being 3, to Australia to study at schools. Along with that, we also brought their mother on a guardian visa to be able to take care of the children while they're studying in Australia, rather than putting them up in a hostel. Firstly, it allows them to be close to family. Secondly, it actually works out cheaper for this family because putting 3 peoples in a hostel would end up being way more expensive than the mother being here with them and providing them support, care, and them living as a unit in one apartment or house. Now, you can come as a student under the age of 15 as well, and come to schooling, but you have to make sure that you do have a guardian, or you're staying in a hostel somewhere or a boarding school where it provides facilities for you to be taken care of. The next thing is we want to focus that you need a COE. COE is a confirmation of enrollment. You obtain that by lodging an application to a school or university or a college, an RTO, registered training organization. Once you have a letter of offer, you make a payment to the college for your first semester along with the administration fees. And once you've made that payment, you generally get a COE. Now with that COE, you can use that to apply for a student visa. If you're located in Australia, then you may not even need a COE. Just the letter of offer can be enough to lodge an application, and you can attach the COE later on. But just be mindful of the regulations that apply. Speak to a consultant before making the decision. Now, once you've done that, you need to make sure that you meet the requirements as well, such as having met the English requirements. So you need to make sure, depending on the course you're studying and the level of that course, you need to meet the eligible requirements, firstly for the university, and then secondly for the visa. You need to maintain health insurance, which is a really important aspect of being on a student visa, because the government does not provide Medicare, which is the Australian medical system, which provides support to permanent residents and Australian citizens. So the government is asking you to make sure that your health is taken care of if you are coming into Australia, because otherwise it can be very expensive, and in most cases people are not able to afford that kind of care. The next thing is genuine temporary entrant criteria. You need to be able to justify that you're a genuine temporary entrant to Australia, and this can cover many things. The most important factor to consider here is which country are you from, which passport do you hold? Because if you hold a passport from a country, I would say in South America, Asia, or Africa, you're scrutinized heavily, maybe except for China, right? Most other countries are scrutinized quite heavily. And then again, if we break that down further, within each of those countries, it will vary depending on which area or state you're from. Well, I want to highlight here that to make a strong application, you need to pretty much cover every single ground of refusal that you can think of. Look at previous refusals, maybe your friends, family members, or anyone else that you know has got one, and try to cover all of that, especially if they're from your region and your country. Now, one thing to note is it's very important to have a consultant on your side for this, whether it's an education consultant or an immigration consultant or a lawyer, because their objective is going to be to get you that visa. It's in their best interest to ensure that you get granted the visa, because they have something to gain out of this, either an ongoing client or a commission from the university or college. Because most people that are in this line of work will be obtaining a commission from the university or college, and that's how they really make their money. So the next thing is, once you have a student visa, right, and you go on to a graduate visa, maybe there's something called visa hopping that's been introduced on 1st July 2024, where you cannot go from a graduate visa back to a student visa. Or alternatively, if you enter Australia on a visitor visa, you cannot apply for a student visa. This is to ensure the integrity of the program, that people are not abusing the system. But the main concern has always been that student visas don't get granted to people from offshore. The government's being really strict, so people were finding a loophole to enter the country on a visitor visa and then going back onto a student visa. The ones that were applying for a student visa after graduate visa were obviously not genuine students. Most of them are trying to extend their stay because they cannot find any other suitable option to continue staying in Australia. So next requirement is having enough money to study in Australia. Now this will vary depending on the size of your family, where you're going to live and what you need, but there's actually a website that I want you to refer to. It's called costofliving.com.au. www.studyaustralia.gov.au. And you can type in what you think your expenses will be, and that'll provide you an estimate of how much money you may need to support yourself in Australia. There's obviously a legal requirement as well, and I'm not touching on that yet because you should really speak to a consultant about how much money you need depending on the course you're going to study, where you're coming from, and how long that course is, and also how many family members will be coming with you. So, where should you study in Australia? That's the next question we quite often get asked. My focus would be to study what you're interested in, firstly. Secondly, how can we align what you want to study with an occupation that's in demand and preferably on the medium to long-term strategic skill list? Because if we can align those two, we can create a pathway towards temporary or permanent residency depending on what your objectives are. And it's very important to consider that before you come here because the right course is really important. We don't recommend changing once you're here because it is actually not good for the university's reputation, and also not good because the government may become more strict, and they already have become more strict on allowing the changing of courses, especially if you're downgrading. Let's say you're trying to go from a master's program back to a diploma program or something like that. So we don't actually recommend that at all. So make sure you decide what you want to do before you go ahead with it. Now, in terms of this medium to long-term strategic skill list, you may not have occupations that align with your interests. Then look at the short-term skilled occupation list as well. See if anything fits your criteria. And that's how I would generally plan a pathway for clients that are interested in studying in Australia, just to keep all avenues and options open should they decide that they do want to stay in Australia for a little bit longer, work there, gain some experience, travel, etc. Now, we've pretty much covered everything about the student visa. If you need advice on where you should enroll, that will depend on what you're trying to do. Whether should you enroll in Sydney or Melbourne or Tasmania, Adelaide, Perth, Darwin, Brisbane, there's a lot of places where you can go. Firstly, what kind of climate or culture do you want at your university? What kind of education do you want? Are you looking to get extra points by studying in regional areas? Because if you study in a regional area, you get 5 extra points when you do your state invitation programs to try and get an invitation from the state for permanent migration, or an invitation from the federal government under the 189. So, all of these factors need to be considered before you actually plan your journey, and depending on what your objectives are at the end of the day. If you have any questions, contact us at Migration Centre of Australia, or you can head to our website to book a consultation directly with me to discuss your concerns. Wishing you the best with your student visa journey.